It was so outside of my realm of what I knew. And I've always gone with this strategy of say yes before you're ready with everything. I've just built that muscle over the years of like, yeah, I could totally do that. Oh, for sure. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Way before I felt qualified, ready, prepared, like I could handle it. And then you either rise to the occasion or have an amazing experience learning a whole lot of stuff that you shouldn't have done.
Welcome to the podcast that helps speakers and writers like you grow their impact and income. This is Stage, Page, and Screen. Juan, today I want to nerd out all about speaking at big events.
Ooh,
as speakers,
I love it.
As speakers, when we get into this, that's often something early on our bucket list to do. Now, as someone who's spoken at many a big event, including the Super Bowl of Motivational Speaking, National FFA, which we'll get to in a moment, you know what a big event is, what it isn't, what it does do for you, what it doesn't do for you. So I want to talk through the facts of that, some of the myths of that. But before we get into that, can you talk to me about a big event failure? So maybe a big event that you previously hoped to get booked for or did get booked for, and it just didn't go that well because you weren't sober-minded enough going into it, to the different challenges and complexities with big events.
Yeah, I think the scale of events constantly changes, right? And your idea of what a big event is constant. That's a moving target, right? I remember when I thought 100 people was a big event, or 1,000 people was a 1,000 person audience was massive. And I remember my first 4-digit speech was exactly 1,000. And it was in a school, and it was my first time in terms of the context of having to use a microphone and like actually having to rely on a microphone. Because with a smaller group, you're kind of okay with getting away with not using it, even with 100 people. And you're like, oh, I could just project. But that was the first time that it was quite the somber experience of realizing of like, oh, this is really hard. This isn't just having a conversation with a lot of people. There's a way to use a microphone, and there's a way to not get close to the speakers so they don't reverb. And there's a way to be able to understand how you sound to the people that you're speaking to, not just to yourself. So that was about an hour. And in the first 5 minutes, in my mind, I was like, oh, this is really not going well at all. Like, this is terrible. This is really going poorly. And the rest of the 55 minutes, I just kind of powered through it, and it was painful and it was awful, but I still remember a lot of those lessons to this day and translated those things into the next one and the next one and the next one. But I would say that's the one that like sticks out in my mind the most.
And how far into your speaking career were you? And what are some of those pertinent lessons that you feel like you took away and applied to future big events?
Oh, I was like 20 minutes in. It was like...
into your speaking career? No, I mean, like, how long had you been kind of going out doing speaking gigs?
Oh, like 20 minutes in.
What?
Like it was, dude.
All right.
It was.
Please explain.
All right. It was a complete fluke. Not literal 20 minutes, but like my drama teacher, Miss Paula Dano, shout out Miss P, that was like the one that believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. She moved to another school. I reached out to her in, I would say, probably the first week of me trying this whole speaking thing, and she was like, "I'm at this new school. Come." They want someone for the whole school. It will be $750. And I was like, I'm going to get paid to do this right now? What? Because I'm expecting to do like 20 speeches for free at this point. Yeah. And I went in and I was unprepared and I had no idea what that was going to be like. And what I took away from that, the biggest thing that I took away from that was understanding that you have to respect the stage. You have to respect the craft. And I didn't at that point. I was like, oh, this will be good, I guess. And you don't realize the amount of nuance and craft and art that it takes to put together a great hour, to put together, let alone a great 5 minutes to be great in that. So that was the biggest lesson from.
Now, when you say
one.
you didn't prepare, is that hyperbole, meaning you didn't prepare at all, or like what kind of level of preparation are we talking? Did you have a couple bullet points on a Wendy's napkin or whatever the Canadian equivalent would be? What are we talking here?
My preparation was as far as picking some stories, because that's what I saw a friend of mine, Blake, a mutual friend of ours, do. And I was like, oh, okay, Blake tells some stories and then he kind of links them to points. Okay, let me just do that. And let me just try something to kind of kick things off. And I'll say, hi, I'm so happy to be here, which is the worst way to start, by the way.
Agreed. That wasn't good enough. Let's try it again.
I can't hear you.
But yeah, that was the extent of my preparation for that event, was pick some stories, kind of pick what advice you want to give with those, and then find a way to open and wrap up. That was it.
And it's tricky when you're starting out, because if you see someone who's been doing it for a while and is quite good at it, like Blake Fly, if you just sit in the audience, they make it look incredibly easy. And so you think, oh yeah, that's no problem. I could just get up there. He's just basically getting up there and stringing together some stories. What's the big deal?
100%. Because it seems effortless, and you don't understand that, like, that effortless nature took hundreds of hours of being in front of people, but also rehearsing and practicing and going through your content and learning your stuff, not just like having your anecdotal points that you walk through. Like, do you actually know your stuff?
Yeah.
It's a really big difference.
So talk to me about when National FFA and the National FFA convention sort of came on your radar. At what point was that maybe a bucket list event for you to speak at? And at what year did you think and feel you were prepared? And now looking back, are you glad that it maybe took a bit longer than that?
Yeah. Literally 2 weeks in. And the kid you not.
You move quick.
What program is he using?
Book your first gig in 15 minutes. You sent one cold email. You got 100% response rate.
This YSU stuff really works.
Everything happened so quickly at the beginning, in terms of, but in the worst way possible. Like, I bombed so hard right out the gate. I had no delusion, where sometimes you do your first free speeches and people are like, oh, that was great. And you're like, really? Kind of gives you that boost of confidence, because you're like, oh, okay, maybe I was thrown right into, like, you were pretty bad. Right? So that's kind of the first layer. Second layer, 2 weeks in, I literally remember this to this day. 2 weeks in, I'm researching. I'm looking up student leadership conferences. Okay? And I stumble upon National FFA, one of the first events that I discovered. And then I saw because you could watch all of the keynotes online. It was one of the only events where you could do that. Other events do not stream their keynotes in full. So I was like, whoa, I could see all these people that I had looked up to and that were in the space that I wanted to be in do it. So I watched every single one of those keynotes. I printed out a picture of National FFA. I put it up on my bedroom wall in my parents' house in Whitby, Ontario, an hour outside of Toronto. And that was the first time it got on my radar. The first time I felt prepared or ready for it was never. Like, there was not a moment where I was like, oh yeah, I could totally do that. And someone that thinks that they're like, oh, I'm ready for that caliber or size of event is incorrect, because you don't know what it's like until you do it. And if you haven't done it, you're under the delusion that you think you know what it's like. So I was never ready. Even when we had talked through, like, doing the event this past, I think it was February, I was like, I got that pit in my stomach. I got that, like one of the biggest events in the world. Oh, yeah. And it took some time to, like, really get myself, even after the event was confirmed. It took me some time to get to the place where I'm like, I'm ready. I would say the first few months was just a mix, like a mixed drink of like anxiety and and overwhelm with like, what if you mess this up? What if you're up there and you literally forget everything you're going to say? Like, there is no do-overs. There's like 4 cameras on you at all time. The security is actually the Secret Service, which I didn't know until I actually got there, because the Secretary of Agriculture, whatever it is speaking. Like, it was so outside of my realm of what I knew that I feel like, and I've always gone with this strategy of say yes before you're ready with everything. I've just built that muscle over the years of like, yeah, I could totally do that. Oh, for sure. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Way before I felt qualified, ready, prepared, like I could handle it. And then you either rise to the occasion or have an amazing experience learning a whole lot of stuff that you shouldn't have done. So yeah.
There's an interesting balance to this whole thing because on the speaker side, I mean, it should sober you and raise some anxiety in you as to the scale, the honor, the potential impact of the event, to your kind of point of say yes before you're ready. But on the client side of things, they're saying yes to you when they not think you're ready, but they've done their due diligence that says you're ready. I mean, a lot of these large events, such as National FFA, I mean, a lot of their due diligence is done covertly. For example, they will send secret shoppers to other events that they find out that you're speaking in. They will not announce themselves. They will not introduce themselves. They will sit quietly in your audience and just watch your talk. And then often, even if they contact you, they're not contacting you under the organization's name so that you don't attempt to poach them for some enormous fee outside of what you would typically charge for a conference. So there, even though on the speaker side, it feels like a bit of a leap, when an organization like that approaches you, that is their stamp of approval saying, we think you're ready for this level of event.
Yeah. And it's sort of the acceptance of that fact where I was like, but why? Like the thought comes up of like, but why me? Why'd you pick me? There's so many other people. There's so, like, you could have anybody. You could literally, like, you have access, connections, resources to everybody. Why? But then you kind of step into this place where you say, oh, okay, the investments that I've made into this bank account over the past 8 or 9 years or whatever it is, the 1,000-student speech that went terribly, speaking to the 170-year-olds in the morning while they ate breakfast, driving to the event where it was 7 people and you have to speak to 7 or 8 people, which a lot of people don't see that as a big deal. That's harder than a group of a few hundred. If you can actually connect, resonate, make laugh, inspire to action a group of 7 or 9 or 11, you're great. Like, you're really good. There's a very big difference because I find that a lot of speakers, they have this sort of bit and they have this like character to them that is only fun on stage. And it's like, whoa, I liked you way better during your presentation.
Yeah.
Like, if you can get that same emotion and that same feeling and that same vibe from a workshop of 4 or 5, I'm way more impressed than your ability to crush with 4 or 5,000.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, because as a speaker, 90% of your events are modest in size and scale. And, and so I would sober anyone that goes, that's thinking in the back of their mind, if I got my dream event where there's 5 digits of people in the audience and, my peers and contemporaries would find out that I got booked there and then they would finally accept me, that event I would really take seriously. That event I would really prepare for, but you're not going to do that. You're not going to have that same level of giddiness and excitement and soberness of mind and preparation for an event with 200. I would say there might be something wrong in your thinking there because as a speaker, 90% of your events are the 500-person event, 200-person event, not the 50,000-person event.
Yeah. Or the 20-person event.
Yes.
Or the 35-person event. Because if you really want to, and I see this a lot when I get this question, like maybe once every other week, of like, how do I do the big stages? And I'm like, you first ask yourself why you want to. Because they're more stressful. You have to play to cameras. The voice bouncing back off the back wall and hitting you in the face is kind of bothersome. You can't make eye contact because there's spotlights that are absolutely burning your retinas for an hour. Like, what part of it do you want to do? Is it the significance? Is it the ego? Is it the... Because for me, at the beginning, in full transparency, it was. That's why I wanted to do it, because I wanted to feel important, because I wanted to feel successful, like I mattered. And then I realized as soon as I let that go and started having fun with the smaller groups, with the groups of 10 or 15 or 20 or 30, then they were like, well, you should come to this conference. And then I started doing the conferences of a few hundred, and then they're like, well, you should do the state event with like 5,000. And then all that preparation in the classrooms kind of sets you up to crush in the conference rooms. That sets you up to crush in the stadiums. And from strictly a business standpoint, and this is as of recent, Josh, you know this, in one of the events that I've worked with that started with a group of 12 has led to probably north of 150K just with that one client.
Yeah.
So it's like, you've got to ask yourself why you want to do the big stages. They're fun. People want to take pictures and sign your shirts. It's weird. It's really weird, honestly. But if you want to do that, have the experience, but question as to why you want to in the first place. Because motive matters and people can feel intention.
Agreed. If you could go back to Juan, who was 14 days into his speaking career and put this big event up on his vision board in the room at your parents' house. If you could go back and visit that young man, how would you sober mind him to what a big event is and how he should be thinking about it, and when he would know he's actually ready for it, not when he hopes he would be ready for it?
I would say that the unlock to not only be ready for them, but to be great at them and to build towards a career that is filled with them is to learn, not just do, learn to have fun with what you're doing. Learn to have fun in your speech. Learn to have fun on a call with a team. Learn to have fun in sharing the ideas that you want to present to a certain conference. I would, at the beginning, the mistake I made, I would take it so seriously. And I would take it so okay, well, I need to be a professional. I need to wear a certain thing and I need to use a certain story and I need to use a certain gesture. It's whoa, the events where I have been the most myself, and I think it's Miles Davis. I could be wrong. Miles Davis, the musician that said it took me 10 years to learn to play like myself. That is my exact experience. It is learning. And honestly, National FFA was one of the first big events where I felt you could watch back those 29 minutes and that is fully just me. That is 100% me. And that was for me personally, so hard to get to. So I would just say you have to have fun with the process, but also you got to learn to be yourself, because everyone, you put them on a stage, you put them on a Zoom call, you put them in a professional setting, they're kind of different. They're a slightly different version of themselves. And the worst thing you could possibly do is be one version on stage and one version off. And I see that happen a lot, where I'll see a speaker that's coming before me in a conference, they're opening and I'm I'm a mid session, and I see them on stage and they're like, oh, okay, that was actually pretty funny. Oh, they're good. Oh, I like that story. Okay. Because I love it. I love the craft of it. And I will give people their flowers. And then I meet them afterwards and I'm like, who the heck are you? And who did you do with the opening person? Who is that? So I would say joy and authenticity are worth their weight in gold.
That's encouraging. Let's get into the super minutia, absurdly nerdy nitty-gritty of these big events. In preparation for this, I wrote a couple bullet points. I imagine you have your own. And, for some who aspire to do big events, this might not be relevant today. For some listening, they have a big event already on their calendar, and I think they'll appreciate this level of nuance. So, for example, one of the kind of nuanced minutia things you spoke to is when you're doing these big events, you aren't really talking to the audience. You're talking to one of the 3 or 5 cameras that are pointed at you, because 98.9% of the audience is watching you on the screen. So talk through learning how to, instead of having eye contact with an audience member, you're scanning those 5 cameras, looking for the one that has the red light above its box, and knowing by staring that thing down, that's how you actually have eye contact with the people you're connecting with.
Yes. A few things, and getting into the absolutely nitty-gritty nuance. You don't want to look directly at the camera, because that creates this weird, like, wait, they're looking directly at me. The iMag, sort of the shots on the side screens, it's great when you look just outside of the camera in both sides. The mistake that I made early on with those bigger events is that I would look at the first 5 rows of people because that's who you can see. But by doing that, I'm looking down. So you can't see my face. So I'm cutting off my facial expression. So you need to look out, not down. And I will pick a few beforehand. I will pick a few anchor points out in the audience. And what was great, even with an event like National FFA, I could see the first probably 100 rows. It was pretty well lit in there. It wasn't blackout. There wasn't a spotlight. It was like kind of a perfect setup for a big room. So I picked a few people where I would look out sort of past the camera, so it felt like they were a part of the experience, but I wouldn't look directly at the camera, because then it feels like they're watching a pre-recorded video.
That
can be weird.
Let's debate that. Let's debate that idea for a moment. I find it very interesting. I guess I would. So tell me how my pushback strikes you. I agree that you don't want to stare down the barrel of the lens the entire time, because then it starts to get a little awkward and creepy, just like if you were having coffee with someone and they stared into your eyeballs for the entire hour, you would go, this is a little much. What is this guy trying to sell me? But don't you think there are certain moments where maybe you're really trying to land a point, really trying to challenge them or push them, that you do, as you would in person, want to make like searing, direct eye contact?
There could be, and dependent on the room setup, because, for example, like that event in California we had, I think it was this past March, it was 10,000 people and it was in the round. So there was 4 cameras and they were constantly switching between one another. So you could never, and they all 4 had red lights.
Oh, so perfect. Perfect.
So you never knew which one was the one. You had no idea. And even with FFA, they had the back camera, which was the static, but they also had a camera on the crane that they would actually use quite a bit. So I agree, but I think, just as an asterisk, that may backfire, where you're giving this unbelievable point. You're staring right down the barrel of the camera, but it's actually like right here. And it's on like your left for some reason. But yes, I do agree. I think there are moments for that. But I would say for the vast majority, you want to make sure that you are sending your energy out into the physical audience and not into the, barrel of a screen or of a camera that maybe you don't even know if is looking at you. Because all the bigger events that I've done, they have at least 2 camera angles.
Yeah. That's a great subtle point. And, and I think a practical sort of protocol or takeaway is, if you're doing a big event, when you're talking to the AV team, ask them, hey, the camera that's live on the screens, will that have a red light, or are they all going to have a red light, or it's only going to have a red light when it's on me? And then if that's the case, you can take advantage of that. If not, kind of to Juan's point, just play to them all or none of them, really, because you're never sure which one's going to be on you.
Yes.
Any other subtleties you want to talk about with the camera? Otherwise, I'll kind of prompt you on another little thing.
Yeah, I think that's important, to kind of send your energy beyond the camera to obviously different angles of the room, depending on the room setup. You want to kind of get the first few rows and not make sure you're not ignoring them, because for a lot of them, those are the kind of die hard, most excited, and you want to win them over early. So I would say at the beginning, kind of have fun with the first few rows. And then as you go on, kind of build your energy up and send your energy out. Because, and I've seen this happen where people ignore the first 10 or 20 rows, and they're like, but I lined up outside. But I'm the one that is like the most excited to be here, and you're just looking over me, and then you lose them. So that's a subtle nuance as well.
Yeah. Good to connect to the individuals in the audience, even if the audience is quite large. A mistake I made, I'm curious if you ever made this at any of your big events, is that I would include state names in a story that I told. And at a small event, this is not a big deal. If you got an event 10, 20, 30,000 people, and you say, well, when I was growing up in Oklahoma, you're going to have a 33-second applause and screaming break, which is quite disruptive to your flow. Did you, at any of these big events, did you accidentally kind of name some specifics that you thought, next time I'm just going to be vague on that?
I haven't had to name any. I haven't accidentally named any specifics and been like, oh, okay, I need to reel that back in. But I've seen a speaker pump an audience up too much and then lose them. And I remember it was in Texas. It was 5,000 people, and it was a speaker that was going before me. They had a 20-minute slot, and then I had the 40-minute sort of like main keynote. And they go on, and these are leadership students. So basically, psychopaths.
They're pre-pumped. They're pre-pumped.
They're psychos. Like they already are so fired up, two Red Bulls deep. So they don't need anything. They don't need anything. This, bless their heart, they come on stage and they were like, are you ready to have the best? If you are, let me hear you make some. And does this for like 3 minutes, loses them completely.
Oh, man.
So then when
they're going to storm the stage.
Probably minute 7, she like loses the audience. Done. Like they're gone. For the next 13 minutes, she is trying to get to message, but they're talking over her and they're screaming. And it was really, it was awful. And I'm up right after, like no break. I'm up right after. So I'm backstage and I'm like, okay, I need to figure something out. Juan, think, because I need to get this out of their system, right? I have to do something to like release the pressure. It's a freaking... I need
Let's
to do
pump
something.
The room full of NyQuil steam, please.
There you go.
Exactly. I need to do something, right? So I scrapped sort of the opening that I had, and I was like, I feel like you guys would yell at anything. Let me put that to a test. Avocado toast. And they like go wild. And then I was like, okay, a polarizing one, like pineapple on pizza. And then I did a few more, and that helped them kind of get it out of their system. And then we continued right along. And it was great. But I think to your point, if you give, especially an exciting audience, if you give them an inch, they will take a mile. And sometimes you won't be able to get that mile back.
So I'm curious, at that Texas event, you said you kind of scrapped your initial opening. Is that because that initial opening that you had planned was a lot of call and response and sort of hyping them up? What did you initially have planned there that you thought, this would not land well considering the current state of this audience?
It had some laughs. I know there was a few quick jokes that I know work with almost every audience that will get them laughing and get some great vibes in the room. I understood those vibes were a little out of control at the moment. So then I just kind of switched those places. So I put some of those jokes right after I already did the energy check. So I was like, I feel like you guys would just kind of yell at anything. And the way I presented it was I was not hyped at all. I just came up and I literally was like, hey. And they're like, okay, who the heck is this? Because everyone else was sort of these like older, like legacy speakers. And I come up and I'm in my like shacket, not this one, but like I'm kind of looking like
dead giveaway.
This one man owned.
I'm looking like an intern. And I go, and I'm like,
Can we have a sound check?
And I'm like, hey, like that's it. And then they kind of like were, it was still like the murmuring. I was like, I feel like you guys would kind of yell at anything, like very conversational. So there's this balance, and we've talked about this, Josh, the balance of like conversational versus performative. And people think you need to go hard with performative the bigger the audience, but sometimes when you do that, it just feels like you're putting on a Broadway show, and going really actual conversational with those big events creates this like, oh, I feel like they're just talking to me. So I had to do that. And then I jumped into sort of the bit and the joke that I know once I already had their attention.
Agreed. To kind of marry this idea with the nuances of cameras we were talking about earlier, when you're speaking at, let's say, 500 people at an event in an auditorium and there's no camera, there's no image magnification, there are people that are 30 yards away from you. And so to kind of grab the attention of those back rows, it can, in those instances, be appropriate to be a bit more high energy, a bit more demonstrative, because you've got to reach out 50 yards to kind of grab their attention. Whereas at these big events, if your image is being magnified, for most people, you are 5 feet away from them. And so if you give that same kind of zany, over the top, when someone's 5 feet away from you, you know, what worked at 50 yards away from you can come across as overwhelming, too much, performative. And the issue with performative for speakers is that I think for a performer, you're there to entertain me, but with a speaker, you're there to persuade me, and none of us are persuaded by people we don't trust. And so if someone came up to the door of your house, knocked on your door, and started doing a lot of flailing arm motions, you would go, I am absolutely not letting you in my house under any circumstance.
That's how Josh and I first met.
That level of kind of trust and intimacy, allowing someone to kind of cross the threshold of your door, really of your heart and mind, is more so the relationship you're entering into.
And you can do that with any scale of event. Now events, before I used to start in terms of this sort of performative of like, well, put your hands like and do all this stuff. I literally start regardless of the audience size. I'm like, hi, I'm really excited to be here. Like, and it's more like how I would be if I were to see a friend I hadn't seen in a while. And I was like, oh, I'm just really excited to jam with y'all for a bit. Like, and it's more, even with FFA, I literally started with a hi. And everyone was so, what did it do? It did two things. Number one, it showed this guy doesn't take himself too seriously, and this isn't going to be a buttoned up PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah.
Number two, it showed that, oh, this is something that like, that isn't canned or scripted or isn't going to be like something else that I've heard. So I think that is just as relevant for the bigger stages as it is for the smaller ones.
All right, so let me pitch you something. Are you someone that wants to launch and grow a speaking business? Maybe it's time to write and publish that book. Perhaps you want to create and sell your online course. Well, I've put together a free on-demand training video for you. It's not going to promise you the moon. It's not going to say it's going to happen quickly or without tears or sacrifice. But I'll pragmatically lay out for you exactly how to chart a course to do all these things we just talked about. You can find this free on-demand training video at stagepagescreen.com. That's stagepagescreen.com. Can you take me through, bit by bit, your pre-stage routine for a big event? So, let's say day 2 of a national FFA. I'm assuming that general session was probably around 10 a.m. or something like that?
I think 9 a.m.
Okay, 9 a.m.
8:30 a.m., 9 a.m. around there.
Okay, so let's call it 9 a.m. I want you to take me through bit by bit, like what time are you waking up? What are you doing? How much are you thinking about it? How much are you just trying to distract yourself from what is coming 3 or 4 hours from now? Take us through in detail your pre-big talk routine.
Yeah. So very dependent on whether it's an afternoon or a morning. And the first day was the afternoon. The first day was the morning. I will wake up well, for the morning one, I woke up probably at 5. A mandatory thing, regardless of when I'm speaking, regardless of if it's a big event or not, I will get myself to the gym to do a full workout because I know the only thing that matters is having my energy right. The content, the stories, all those things are going to come if I have my energy right. So I will wake up, I will drink a full glass of water, make sure I'm hydrated, get to the gym. I will come back, shower up, kind of change into like an oversized shirt. I will just kind of chill in the hotel, relax, and I will test my voice. And I'll just kind of see my range and see, am I able to go up here without it cracking? And am I able to? So I'll check sort of the range of my lows and my highs to see if there's anything in there that that needs addressing. And by the way, before National FFA, the day before I completely lost my voice for the first time in my career.
Insanity.
So this was very relevant to that. So I will kind of test those things out. I will not look at any content. I will not look at any notes. I won't look at anything at all. I will text the client, see if they want, a Starbucks or a coffee or a tea or whatever it is. I'll typically get a tea. Life hack: if you like Starbucks, ask for a medicine ball tea. It is on the secret menu. It is a honey citrus mint tea, and it is incredible for your voice. And ask for it half sweet because it comes pretty sweet, but it is called a medicine ball tea. So I'll get one of those. And you kind of are feeling yourself when you're carrying around a Starbucks cup. I don't know what it is. So then I will bring...
Especially if you're wearing a shacket or whatever.
100%. I feel like I'm okay. We are ready to go. I'll go to the venue. I'll scope it out if I haven't for sound check the day before, which that was the case.
Okay, so hold on, Juan. Let me interrupt you for a second. So what time are we talking now that you might start to kind of stalk the venue?
So and I'm going to actually give the example of the first day because that's a more relevant example. So I'll wake up, do a workout, drink a bunch of water. Then I will grab a tea. I will change into, my outfit, the shacket or the blazer or whatever it is that day. I will go to the venue. I'll go to sound check. Sound check is typically for bigger events, 2 or 3 hours before the actual, it is not an hour before. It is this event, it was 5 hours before. So I will go do sound check. I will check out the room, check out the venue, and those pieces I obsess over. I obsess over the lighting. I obsess over the confidence monitor and what's going to be on it. I obsess over the kind of mic. Who is miking me up? Because I've had mics fly off my face because someone didn't know how to tape. I obsess over all of those pieces. Where are the cameras going to be? Where are we going to be backstage? What is coming on stage right before me? What is the run of show? I want to talk to the production manager. I want to talk to all of those people. I want to talk to the tech crew to know, they are the most important people in the room, by the way. Second to the client. And then, so I'll do a sound check. I'll head back to the hotel.
Juan, let me ask you, when you're going through that kind of checklist of all those different things, what are you trying to solve or do for yourself mentally or psychologically by going through that?
I'm making sure that the accessory pieces to make the presentation great are all set, meaning I don't need a slideshow, but the pieces and the images and the visuals significantly add to it. I don't need a great mic, but having a great mic and the resonance it creates adds to the experience. So I'll ask them and see, in the first things I check, sort of in order of priority, I will check the mic first. I want to know what mic I'm working with. Do you have lavs? Do you have headsets, handheld, Countryman's, whatever it is? And do that check. Then while I'm doing that, I'll give them my slideshow, on a USB. I will check that out to see with their clicker, because typically those big events have the perfect cue. And then I'll check that. I'll see with the confidence monitor. And then I'll sort of just get a feel for the room to know where are going to be my marks. Meaning there are certain spots on big stages that are pitch black that you can accidentally step into and you're dark. And I've seen this happen to a lot of people. So I want to know where those are. Where am I lit? Where can you see me? What's the range? Is there any no-fly zones? That's a really important question. Is there any no-fly zones on this stage? Often the answer is yes. I'm like, I want to know where those are. So then all of those details kind of give me the peace of mind to know, okay, I can focus on crushing it. That's it.
Now let's say a particular event had all of those mics, and they said, I can honestly say all of these mics are of excellent condition. Which one, Lav, Countryman, handheld, which one would you choose and why?
Headset mic, for sure. Either Countryman or any equivalent that is just like one of those pieces here. Because I think body language, especially in terms of storytelling, is really important. And with a handheld microphone, you are limited in your ability to tell a great story. And I would use handhelds like for years, and then these bigger events, I realized I was like, oh, you're uncomfortable using both hands. And I kind of took it on as like a personal challenge of like, only ask for headset mics. Like that's it. That's all you're going to ask for. And there's certain mic tricks you can do. That's why I prefer it over the Lav, because there's certain mic tricks and effects you can do with it being here, like on your head. So that's typically what I go with if they have it as an option.
And for you, okay, so now let's say you're going to be taking the stage in about 30 minutes.
Oh.
What are you doing at this point? What are you saying to yourself? What, if anything, are you reviewing or looking at sort of that 30 minutes to launch mark?
So typically, funnily enough, at the 30-minute mark, that's when your handler will come get you from wherever you are, and they will bring you backstage. So right before that, I'm sitting in the audience because I want to get a feel for the room. So I'm sitting in the audience. I was sitting at FFA. I was sitting with my family. I was sitting with my fiance. And then the handler comes get me at the 30-minute mark. That's when I know I'm going backstage. It is go time. I get backstage. I put on my AirPods. I play some instrumentals, either Hans Zimmer, Transformers, Avengers, anything Marvel, nothing DC.
Yes.
And basically I skip. I do push-ups because I know I have to get my physical energy right. I do some like vocal, like just kind of hearing out my voice. I go get mic'd up immediately, like before I do the push-ups and the skipping and whatnot. I kind of talk to myself and give myself a little pep talk of saying like, you've been working on this for a decade. Everything that you've done, every workout that you've done, every flight you've taken, every hotel you've slept, like, and I just go on a little rant to myself to get myself psychologically ready because now I'm physically ready. And then it is just for probably 5 minutes, 10 minutes before, I'm like, just have a good time. You love this. You love this. It's fun. Just have a good time. You're going to have a good time. It's going to be fun. This is fun. You get paid to have fun. Like, it's going to be a great time. Like, I have to remind myself of that. And that helps me override the nerves of it. And then we just go.
Now, let's say 30 seconds to go. You're getting introduced. You hear the introduction. At that point, does a little bit of anxiety try to creep in? And then once you're on stage and kind of into it, it releases and that subsides? Or at that point, you feel kind of riled up and ready to go?
No, I am fired up and just like I'm literally bouncing like I'm in the tunnel of Madison Square Garden ready to go play. Like I feel like every big speech, every speech in general feels just like a game 7 where I'm like going to play. I'm literally doing like stretches. I'm doing like high jump. People are looking at me like I am a psycho. And even if there's someone that's going to whisk me on stage, like I am like skipping. I'm doing sprints. I'm doing like explosive sprints, like
Amazing.
Backstage, like within the risers and whatnot. And people are like, who the heck is this guy?
NFL Combine.
I genuinely treat it like that. And I'm like getting myself ready. I'm like doing explosive breathing. It is a completely physical experience. I'm doing high knee, like I'm literally doing high knees. I'm doing like explosive things because I know that's the energy I want to bring. And the handler is just kind of there trying to like corral me and like control me. And then they like whisk me on stage. But
so what I hear is you're doing an entire CrossFit workout 100%. As your introduction is being read.
Basically, I'm doing those like jumps when you see like a player getting ready to be put in to the game.
Now, as people would probably gather from you Now, as I kind of said in your introduction, there was a period of your life early on where you struggled with confidence. And, we're in a minute, we'll get into your book, The Confidence Cycle, which you're doing with Penguin Random House, which will be released in 2025. But before we get to what you've learned about confidence, I'm curious, has this confidence ever worked against you during a period of your speaking career on stage? I could almost imagine for some in the audience, they kind of could have, if your confidence doesn't come across right, almost like a visceral, going back to high school, anti-jock kind of reception to you. Like, oh, easy for this guy. He's handsome. He's articulate. I saw him doing burpees, before he got introduced. Has there ever been a period where you felt like your confidence worked against you because you didn't sort of temper it right for the audience?
Yes, a phenomenal question, and I think phenomenal word as period, because it wasn't a single speech. It was a period of my career where I was finally had some confidence in what I was doing. And I thought I was like good. I was good. I had a good skill set at speaking and I was doing a good job. And I would work with these events and it was going well. For the first time in my life, I was doing good work. And then I was getting sort of the feedback of that. And not that I even let it get to my head, but I doubled down on the fact and almost celebrated the confidence that I hadn't had for so long. And that celebration of that translated to people listening to unrelatable. Well, you've never been where I've been. Well, no. You have it like, you have it all. You have no idea what it's like to be awkward. You have no idea what it's like and I felt this like disconnection from the audience because I felt like I needed to be a certain thing to be in this industry. And then I realized it's like, wait, the actual next level of this space and of this work is understanding that you're not a big deal and that you're just a person and that it doesn't matter what. So then even the bigger the events got, I remember I switched the gear and I remember the certain events where this had happened because there wasn't that like connection point. I was like, what's going on? And I remember I was like, oh, I need to just basically throw it all out there and say like, listen, I am consistently and constantly doubting myself and unsure about my next move. But the difference, and I realized this, is that confident people experience doubt like everyone else, but the only difference, they don't see it as a sign to stop. And I realized I would experience doubt, and I still experience doubt all the damn time. But the difference is, and what I try to convey to people and what we're trying to do with this book is that you can experience all the doubt in the world, but don't see it as a sign to stop. See it as a sign to get better. And as soon as I started encouraging that, as soon as I started saying like, listen, I'm so messed up and there's so many things that every single day when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh, I don't want to wake up. This sucks. This is horrible. It's so early. It's cold. I'd rather sleep. But making the decision, I'm like, I'm just a regular guy. I'm not an Olympian. I'm not a politician. I'm not a former professional athlete. I'm just someone who didn't have any confidence that figured some stuff out. And I'm here to share it. As soon as I made that connection point, people were like, oh, that's the result of what he's saying. Like that actually makes sense.
Yeah, it's a tricky dichotomy for us as speakers because we both have to inspire our audience to go a bit further than they think they can, but also try to empathize and meet them where they're at so that we can, I guess, kind of walk alongside them, not just yell at them 2 miles down the road and say, hey, get your butt down here. How do you feel like, what things were you doing privately, quietly, behind the scenes in your own personal life to get your tone and posture right? Because, all of us as speakers have one or two things that are just kind of gifts that are just off the chart skills or gifts or things that we bring to the table. But often if we go too far with those things, like you talked about a period where you went too far with your confidence, they can be detrimental to us. So what things were you doing privately to course correct confidence and get that volume at the right level?
Yeah, I think it was the consistent and overwhelming amount of work on the craft of speaking and of storytelling and of message, so that I learned it so well that I didn't, when it came to get on stage, I didn't feel the need to have to prove anything other than the idea that I'm looking to share. That was the difference. I was like, wait, if I'm trying to feel more important in a certain story or a certain message or a certain anecdote, that's because I actually don't believe that the content that I'm sharing, the idea that I'm trying to present, is enough to stand on its own feet. As soon as I started to see, I'm like, oh, this idea, I can present words on a paper and it's still great. So I don't need to fluff it up with any false confidence to make people. It's not my job to convince people of it. It's my job to share a great idea that is noteworthy enough for someone to really take it in as something that they can use. So it was the overwhelming just commitment to like working on those ideas enough and massaging them enough to get them to a point where it's like, I could give this to someone else, they could share it, and someone would find it really helpful.
Well, that's an excellent parlay into talking about your book, The Confidence Cycle. I'm curious what you've learned transferring these ideas to the page, to the written word, because as you kind of teed up so eloquently, as a speaker, you get to wrap your ideas in your personality, your stories, your delivery, all of that. But in a book, it's just the words. It's just the idea. Someone's not hearing your voice. They're often reading it quietly to themselves, hearing their own voice. So what have you learned specifically in the joyful and painful process of writing this book, The Confidence Cycle?
Yeah, I feel like I learned that speakers can get away with a whole heck of a lot. We are able to convince people of a level 5 idea with a level 10 conviction. We're really able to do that. With a book, you can't. Either the idea is a 10 or it's a 2. You could take, I could take a level 2 idea, a 2 out of 10 idea. I could fluff it up on stage and make it kind of like an 8 or a 9.
Yep.
You can mask things on stage. I'm not saying to do that, and I'm not saying that that's a healthy approach, but I am saying that is naturally what a lot of us do. And Agreed. It is, you wrap a simple idea of, there's some speakers that are like, your network is your net worth. And people are like, oh my gosh, that is amazing. And they're taking notes and they're inspired. It isn't about the words you say. It's about how those words make people feel. With a book, you don't have any say in that. So I've really learned the commitment to excellence of ideas. And that's honestly translated into my speaking at a whole nother level, because now going through my new keynote for 2024, I'm like trashing anything that I don't think is a 8 or a 9 that I can get to a 10. But before, I would take these 3 ideas and I'm like, but I can make that funny. Yeah, I can make people laugh with that. That'll be good. So I think it's really the commitment to like excellent ideas.
Yeah, I affirm that in you, Juan. I saw that in your national FFA keynote. Just absolutely outstanding ideas. The way I like to think about it is, if I wrote down this idea on a piece of paper, could my aunt in Iowa deliver it? And would it, maybe not be as well delivered as it would be if it came from a professional speaker, but would it help whoever it was that she was delivering the idea to? So I affirmed that in you, Juan. I saw that in your keynote. I'm curious, when you're wrestling with some of these ideas and, something worked really well on stage, you work to put it in the book and you kind of self-assess it and you go, this is like a 4 or 5. What are the things you're looking for when you might say abandon the idea? You go, this just isn't good enough. I got to go back and dig for a better or different or new way to say this, versus there's gold in these hills, but like it ain't there yet. And I've got to just be relentless until we get it to a 9.
Yeah, I think one is the process of bulletproofing the idea against different personalities and finding how it lands with different people, because I'm one person. So I want to find how it's going to land with a few different people and see, like, does this make sense to you? Or how are you reading this? Or how are you getting this? And then sometimes with certain ideas, I will take this and be like, okay, is that a 4 out of 5? But this has been super helpful in my life, so I know this works. And I know this has worked for other people. So let me try and find the writer that we're working with for the book. We call it like what's the DNA of humanity? Like, how can we tap into the DNA of humanity? That thing that you say that everyone can resonate with, that everyone can relate to. And as a speaker, you find those things sometimes by accident. Like I had this one piece on like being afraid of the dark. And as a kid, I used to do the light switch sprint. And I said that by accident on stage and it got 100% reaction. And I was like, wait, like, you know what that is? Because for the longest time, I thought I was the only one that would kind of hold the light switch and then click it off and sprint under the covers, because once I was under the covers, I was good. And
Jesse
then I was like,
still does that to this day. I'll just say
That's
that.
true. I did it.
I was like, oh, that is an example of striking the DNA of humanity, of something that everyone can kind of connect with, relate to. But sometimes it's like that idea in a 4 or 5 would be like if you're afraid of the dark, that is because of the story that you tell yourself in your head about what's in the dark. You just need to flip that script and change it. That's maybe a 2 or a 3, actually, of that idea. Same idea, but then finding the through line that the person that is hearing it or ingesting the idea can find themselves within that story. And I think that's our goal. It's like, can you help the audience member or the reader find themselves in this example, anecdote, story, message? If they can't, then it's a 4 or 5.
I'm fascinated by the idea of procuring feedback. It can be sometimes difficult to hear, difficult to sort through. Sometimes two people who you both respect, their feedback sounds wise, but also contradicts each other. So you're not quite sure how to reconcile those things. You talk about you let other people in your life that you trust read or push back against these ideas. Do you have different sort of categories of people that you're looking for? Someone who is really driven by their heart, someone who's really driven by their intellect. Are there categories of person you're trying to get feedback from?
Yes. And that's kind of the awareness of, I know I'm the like yes person, the idea, the inspiration, the let's go take on the world person. Then I also need sort of like the writer we're working with is more so of that like tactical, strategic, analytical brain that sees things of, well, how does page 1 connect to page 64? And like, that's just not me. For me, it's like, but how did page 1 make me feel? And it's like, but how can we spin that to away? And then there's someone like you who is like, but how do you prove it? Like, where's the science? Because we need that person. We need that little bit of like, well, this could be a bunch of baloney. How can you prove it? Prove it to me. And then who we're working with at Penguin Random House, she is like the perfect blend of is just like a shark that will tell you how it is. So I kind of see these different dynamics and understand there are certain people in my life that are exactly like me that there would be no value in them giving a perspective on at this stage of the process. So I think I look for a difference in terms of the voices, but not try and say, hey, let me get 25 people to give feedback on this, because that's when you're drowning in different perspectives and it loses sight of the goal of let's create the best book.
Yeah, I think that's a really helpful perspective to have, is leaning on folks that think a bit differently than you, because in your readership, just like in an audience of a speech, you're going to have all those different personality types sitting in your audience anyway. And so you want to make sure that you're speaking to them, that you're anticipating their objections, that you're speaking to the way in which they learn and are most persuaded other than, or instead of just writing the book just for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. What else have you learned through this book writing process, Juan?
Oh my gosh, where do I even start? There's a whole nother level of excellence when you are working on a project like this, where it goes through different rounds of people, different teams that are looking at the same thing and just trying to dissect apart what are we really trying to say here? So I've definitely learned in raising the bar in terms of excellence. That's the first thing. And the second thing is knowing that ideas are great, but if they are not put together in the correct way, they will fall on deaf ears. Where we had so many amazing ideas for this book, and so many different concepts and things. As soon as we got to the nucleus of the confidence cycle, the framework, the 3 pieces, the 3 decisions, as soon as we got to that, it was like, oh, that's it. That's what it is. And I find the best speeches, the best books all have the central thesis, because I've read some books, I'm sure you have as well, where you read the book and you're like, okay, so I felt good and I guess that was great, but
now what?
What am I taking away from that? And that's what I did not want. I wanted something that people would really be able to walk away with and say oh, I have a system, I have a tool, I have a framework that I can use in order to become a better version of myself. And I think we got to that.
Agreed. Now prior in your career, you self-published a book or 2. Knowing what you know now, this different kind of process and protocol that is established in the construct of a major publisher, and working with people that all they do every day is think about books and produce books. What would you do differently having this knowledge if you, in the future, did another self-published book?
I would wait until I was ready to work with a publisher. I would wait until the idea was good enough for them to take it on. Because I feel like the book that I self-published all those years ago, where I was like, okay, speakers have books, I guess I should write a book, right? It was the kind of book that was you would read it and it was some good ideas and it maybe made you feel good. Maybe. That's a hard maybe. But then you couldn't do anything with it afterwards. It was it just was that. And it was a book just to write a book. And I feel hot take alert, a lot of people write books to say that they wrote a book. A lot of people write books to say that they're a published author and they think it's going to get them on more stages. It will not. It's a hot take. Some event planners maybe will be like, oh, do you have a book? And that will sway their committee to having you on stage. That honestly isn't. I was under the delusion that would be my ticket into the speaking industry. It was not, and it is not. I think it's an amazing project to work on, and something if your heart is in it. Because especially traditional publishing, you are oh my gosh, it's a different beast. It is so different. It is a 2-year grind and a journey of just working on one of the things that you have dedicated the most time out of anything in your life to. It's wild. It is a wild experience.
Yeah, I mean, major publishers really do hold your feet to the fire in a beautiful way in which they think about your book in decades. They think, we want this to be serving people, helping people, and getting you royalty checks decades from now. We're not interested in something that you can trick the audience that's come to know you and trust you or subscribe to your email list and sell them a couple thousand copies, and then none of them recommend it because really it's a piece of crap that we just sold off of your following or personality or previous trust. They really want, complete strangers to stumble upon it, and it so much helped them that then they recommend it to 5 other complete strangers. That's how a book becomes successful, and that's how the author become successful is really, if I was to boil it down to 2 words, be helpful. That's it. That is the point of a nonfiction book. If it's entertaining, great, but really the goal is to be helpful. If it's, interesting, new ideas, thought-provoking, great, but the key above all is to be helpful.
Totally agree. I think it's there's a lot lost in the people romanticize, I guess you could say, the idea of being an author and thinking that it's going to be this chalked up thing. And I'm like, you could put a bunch of words in a Word document and upload it to Amazon KDP and be an author. So, and you can do that in a weekend, by the way. So like, what are you, again, it kind of goes back to the conversation around big stages. Why do you want to be on them? Why do you want to be an author? And I remember when Josh, when you and I talked about this idea of like, I literally, to give you a concept of the nucleus of how this thing even came to be, I was sitting in a coffee shop and I was trying to reverse engineer the past 7 years of my life of how I went from someone to having zero confidence to someone that was pretty confident at that point in my life. And I did something, but I never understood what I did. And I didn't use any of the research on confidence because it is completely flawed and there is so many missing pieces in it. And I literally drew this system, this confidence cycle, and then I presented it at a workshop in Oregon. In Oregon at Oregon State University. And I presented it at a workshop. There was a PhD sitting in the room at the back of the room. It was 60 students. And they came up to me and they were like, after the presentation, they were like, you need to turn this into something or get research behind it, because I've never seen a concept like this on confidence. And I feel like you really need to pay attention to this. And I was like, I was just so excited about the concept. I exited the workout room. I called Josh. I literally called him and I was like, hey man, I have this idea. Like, I don't know. And I was just like, after I finished, like just on a rant, I had no idea. I was just so excited about the idea. Then we put the proposal together. We figured all that out. But the fuel of all of that was, this is a really great idea. Like the idea was a 10. The idea was a 10. It took a long time to get all the other pieces, the proposal, the first chapter, and the table of contents, and all of those pieces to a 10, because it started at a 2 or at a 3. But the idea was a 10. So it's like, if you want to write a book, get a level 10 idea, get a level 9 idea, and then kind of build from there.
Agreed. Yeah. Everything rises or falls based on how solid the idea or the methodology is, how practical it is, how helpful it is. Can you completely remove yourself, your personality, your personal story from the methodology? And is it still helpful to people? I think about, Dave Ramsey has this book where he talks about 7 baby steps to, get some financial independence. There are people all over the world that teach that methodology that are not him. Now, he could probably deliver it better than any of them, but that core idea is so helpful that it's like a piece of luggage with luggage handles, and people can pick it up, apply it to their own life, and then share it with others. So Juan, you're exactly right. That is why you got a book deal. It wasn't that you were going to be speaking on all these big stages, though that helps. It wasn't that you had this compelling media-friendly personality, though that helps. The core of it, the non-negotiable component of it, is a genuinely helpful idea and methodology. And that can sometimes take years to figure out, to be able to identify, to be able to codify. And I see a lot of speakers try to rush that. They put out an idea that has potential, but it's half-baked, thinking it will help their career, and often it kind of quietly behind closed doors hurts their career.
It took 7 years to develop the confidence cycle. I was still, like, in my career, I had no framework. I would just have different ideas, whether I was speaking on leadership or resilience or mode, any of those ideas. I would just kind of have some stories, kind of like a random book, have some stories with some messages, And then it was good because I kind of like, I learned how to make people laugh and I learned how to piece together some great stories. But I didn't have the system. I didn't have the my start with why, my 5-second rule, my that thing that was the sort of the foundation of everything. And I would, if anyone that is looking to build their speaking career or like write a book or whatever it is, have an idea that you get so excited about that you want to tell. The one way I knew, I literally got home from that coffee shop. I told all of my friends. I made them sit down for an hour. They're like mid 20s, mid to late 20-year-olds. I made them sit down and learn about confidence for like an hour. I was so excited. I'd never done that in my entire career about any idea except for this. And I told them, I was like, poke holes in it. I was like rip it apart. Told the same thing. I was like, I feel like I have something here, but let's rip it apart. And it was bulletproof. So
what has been the process for you of kind of shifting your audience? And I know you intend to shift it even more so this direction and in the next year, shifting from speaking primarily to students to more so speaking primarily to adults. What are some of the myths that you kind of made big monsters in your head that weren't that big of a deal? What did you get right and what did you get wrong in that shift?
I got wrong that in the corporate space, things are so much more serious and more official and more, uptight, where adults are just kids in big bodies. They like to have an amazing time. They're humans. They have families. They have goals. They have hobbies. They have weird quirks. They have things that they like that no one really knows about. And again, speaking of the DNA of humanity and the events that I've done, whether it's for educators or whether it's for architects for their annual meeting or whether it's for a credit union conference for hundreds of their CEOs to frontline tellers, all people have this. And I feel like the confidence cycle genuinely speaks to the DNA of humanity, because when I've run people through this idea and through this framework, all of them are just like, I never thought of it or myself in that way. Like, oh, that makes total sense. And I understand that. And I'm in my life, I have been so excited to kind of become the beginner constantly. I never want to be the smartest person in the room. I never want to be the best person in the room. I want to be the person that is just starting. And in the corporate realm, I feel like I'm just getting my feet wet and I'm just starting. And in that, I realize I'm like, oh, it's the misconception that I had is that you have to be a lot more serious and you have to wear a suit and tie and you have to be the certain persona that speaks in a certain way. It's like, no. They appreciate someone coming in and not being the pinstripe suit with the massive tie in the pocket square, which honestly still exists. And it blows my mind how there are speakers that they do that and they crush. And I feel like that is phased out in the next 10 years with the thought leadership and authorities that are coming out that are younger, that are able to connect with the workforce in a completely different way. I feel like
jackets.
Yeah, and just wearing jackets and long chains, and they have 100%. So that was the biggest misconception.
Well, Juan, I appreciate your time today. Appreciate you sharing your lessons, your failures, your shacket and other wardrobe vernacular with us. I feel like I learned I got to get a shacket and I need a medicine ball tea.
Yes.
The next time that I go to Starbucks. So
half sweet.
Thanks for sharing your wisdom with us. And I've got a sneak peek at the Confidence Cycle book that's going to come out in a couple of years. It's going to genuinely, honest to goodness, be absolutely life-changing for so many people. So excited to see that thing get up and off the ground and hit escape velocity.
Oh, me too. Long road ahead, but we're just getting started. We're warming up. Thanks so much for having me. This has been a blast.
Yes, sir.
Ryan.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.